I really just need to write this stuff down. I'm going to forget again. So now I'd just like to share a few ways that you can improve your memory capability. So we've already talked about a few of the most basic ways that you can increase your memory. You know, things like elaborative processing, where you try to relate these new memories to the stuff that you already have inside your head. So just look for meaningful connections, meaningful associations between the new stuff and the old stuff. But here's a few other encoding strategies. So the second piece of advice I'd give you is called selection. So just don't try to remember everything. Just focus on the most important parts first. So do the elaborative processing only with the most important information first, and then if you have time, come back and try to get the rest of the stuff as well. Another piece of advice is organization. So try to keep your studying material in order. Don't just, go through it one step at a time. You should organize things, like by subject or by class session or however you like to organize your information. Just have it in some kind of meaningful order. Another one would be whole learning versus, part learning. So what I mean by this is study the largest meaningful amount of information you can at one time. So just focus on the most big ideas, focused on the major ideas initially. Another strategy you can use is called serial position. So serial position just refers to the fact that we tend to most easily remember the first stuff and the last stuff in a list. So if you're having trouble remembering something, if you're having trouble, really being able to focus on some important piece of information, then just reorder the information. Just, focus first on whatever it is you're most in need of creating a memory for. Put the least important stuff in the middle of your study session. We talked last time about the use of memory cues. So just purposefully associating various stimuli with specific memories. Like you could do this with all kinds of things. You could tie a ribbon around your finger while thinking about the definition of a term. Or you can just put your body into the same state during learning that you will be in at retrieval. So just drinking caffeine while you study and then drink caffeine while you take a test. Just having those kinds of persistent stimuli in yourself and in the environment to help you retrieve those memories. Another one would be overlearning. So overlearning refers to just studying too much, studying too long. It's kind of like you've already mastered the information, you already know everything there is to know for the upcoming tests, but you keep studying. So this kind of overlearning can be useful for two basic ways. First of all, it's going to allow those memories to last much longer. So you'll be able to remember this information well beyond just, the upcoming test. But secondly, it'll also help you deal with test anxiety. So even if you've been studying a lot and you feel like you'll be able to deal with this test just fine, if you're still feeling anxious, then keep studying. Another one would be spaced practice. So with spaced practice, I'm just saying don't cram. Don't wait till an hour before the test and then just work as hard as you can to get all that information into your head. What you should do is you should study off and on for, hours, days, or even weeks. Just have short periods of study followed by periods of rest where you focus on other kinds of things. So this kind of spacing out, this kind of, staggering of your study sessions can definitely help your brain to process that information. Now here's a retrieval strategy. This is something that will allow you to better retrieve stuff that you have inside your brain. So get those, long-term memories back out again. Perhaps the most effective kind of strategy I can give you is called retrieval practice. Sometimes it's called the testing effect. So with this, you just, periodically during your study sessions, you just want to test yourself, ask yourself questions, see if you know the answers. Try to figure out what you do know and what you don't know. And by testing yourself, you can more easily focus your study sessions on that material that you're still not very clear on. I could go on and on and on about all these different, pieces of advice that will help you to improve your ability to remember information. But I have a really, really good video in the comments down below just talking to you all about how memory works and how you can improve your memory. So I definitely recommend watching this video because it has very practical advice that can allow you to significantly increase your ability and your efficiency when it comes to remembering new information. Beyond all these pieces of advice, and strategies for studying and things like that, there's a few basics that you should also know. Sleep and hunger play major roles when it comes to memory. Now, we've already talked about how REM sleep is important. If you don't get enough REM sleep, then you're not going to be able to form new memories very well. So a lack of sleep will definitely cause problems for you. It'll make it very difficult for you to create new memories. But hunger can also do the same basic thing. So if you're very hungry, you're going to also find it incredibly hard to remember anything. So my word of advice to you is make sure you get plenty of rest, about 8 hours a night, and you get plenty of food. But please don't, try to do both of these at the same time or you're going to have some serious problems. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is mnemonics. So mnemonics refer to a wide range of different kind of memory systems or memory aids. We sometimes just call them like memory tricks, like little techniques that we can use to more easily remember certain pieces of information. An acronym is when you just create a word. You create a word using the first letter or the first two letters or something like that of a sentence or a series of words. So one of the more famous acronyms that you may be very familiar with is Roy G. Biv. So this seems to be a person's name, but it's really just all the first letters of every color in the rainbow. So you have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So that's one acronym, but our world is full of acronyms because they are very, very effective at helping us to remember. And then you have that chunking. You may or may not have heard of chunking, but the basic idea of chunking is this. I said before that we can only remember about 7 information bits. So you can only keep about 7 information bits in your short-term memory. So that would be like a single letter or a single number or something like that. But with chunking, we can significantly increase that capacity. So with chunking, now we're just kind of grouping information bits into what are called information chunks. So these chunks can consist of 2 or 3 or sometimes even 4 or 5 bits. So here's just a couple of examples of information chunk. You could have something like initials or a date, like 1962. That's actually 4 separate numbers, but if you consider it as a single date, then now it's one chunk. And chunking can be very effective at increasing your memory capacity. Here's an example of how you could use chunking if you've never used it before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a series of information bits and then indicate the chunks that you should try to form. So here you go. So here's the series of numbers, and the chunks are 92, 10, 42, 16, 35, and 40. So remember, 92, 10, 42, 16, 35, 40. Okay, so what were those information bits? Do you remember all of the information bits? If you do remember all of them, then you just remembered 12 information bits, and that's well above the normal. So remember, most people can only remember 7 bits. And then finally we have the PEG system, where first you want to memorize a list of words and associate each one of those words with a number. So for example, 1 could be bun, and 2 is shoe, and 3 is knee. Now after you've done this, you can then use it to remember a list of objects in order by doing something like this. Like, let's say you want to remember a grocery list in order, and your grocery list is turkey, eggs, and bacon. So you just associate each one of these objects with the numbered word that you had previously memorized. So you would create a story, something like, you would imagine a turkey eating a bun while laying eggs in a shoe and then slapping bacon on its knee. So yeah, it's a nonsensical story. It's silly. But just visualizing it, seeing these things happen, seeing these objects interact in this way, can definitely increase your memory. And in many cases, the more bizarre the story is, the more effective it's going to be.